Very welcome, all of you. So, today's topic is about clinical benefits. As by this name, it's very easy to understand what is clinical benefits, but we are going to understand this clinical benefits in terms of or in context of EU MDR. Okay, so what is clinical benefits? So, for any medical device, how they impact to the patient in diagnosis, preventions, alleviations, preventions of any particular diseases. So in that forms how this medical device is useful, how this medical device impact positively to the patients, because medical device has a negative and positive impact both, but for the clinical benefits we need to consider its positive impact to the patients, not even negative. And it's may possible any medical devices may have positive and clinical impacts, but in that scenario if the negative impact is inevitable, then their positive impact should be much higher than their negative effects or negative impacts. So in that way they calculate the ratio, benefit by risk ratio. It's called the benefit divided by risk. The benefit by risk ratio, in which if the benefit is higher, then medical device can be sold, and for those risks, even if they have risk, even the benefit is much more higher than the risk, but the risk is also should be justifiable. How the benefit thing is, how much important to consider these kind of risks. So this justification also needs to provide by the manufacturer for that particular medical device. But this is a little bit to the complex case. We will understand in some another video what are the benefit and risk ratios. But here we need to consider about the clinical benefits. And the clinical benefits, if medical device impacting positively to the patient, then it is a clinical benefits. Now for these clinical benefits, manufacturers need to work hard. How? So manufacturers need to do some clinical assessment, clinical data assessments, post market surveillance, clinical evaluation, and post market clinical follow up. So each and everything manufacturer needs to done to assure or to ensure or to produce or to record such data which signifying or which demonstrating that their medical device has clinical benefits to the patient in compared to the other alternative therapies. This is also very much important. Suppose if there is already some other alternative therapy which having benefit oppose, just suppose benefit 5 out of 10, any alternative therapy having the benefit 5 out of 10. Now as a manufacturer I produce some another medical devices, and that medical device is having the clinical benefit for like less than 5 out of 10 or maybe 5 out of 10, the same. So in that way how can I justify the use of my medical device? Because alternative therapy which is already existed and in practice they have the clinical benefit of the same, then why my device they're going to utilize? So I need to show them how my device, my medical device having the clinical benefits more than that. Or even we can select some genre. For example, clinical benefits may have some different sectors in existing technology. In one of the domains, suppose there is zero clinical benefit. In another domain maybe it have the 5 or 10, like that. But in another some domain they having the clinical benefit with zero, they doesn't have anything related to this. But your device, your medical device having the clinical benefits in that segments also, then definitely that going to helpful. Now what exactly the I can go into the detail, but for that you need to DM me, then I will explain you a lot on this, like how the clinical benefits can be categorized, or what kind of clinical benefits we can think of, because there are already so much things in market. So as a manufacturer, if you want to produce your medical device, you want to sell out your medical device in existing environment, then how you can make a twist and turn in the clinical benefits, how you can impart or how you can improve your clinical benefits in your manufacturing devices. Now once again, the clinical benefits of any medical devices should be according to their intended purpose. Suppose in some of the medical devices having the clinical benefits due to their material composition or due to their device design, they're going to produce some kind of benefit, clinical benefit to the patient, but completely in different domain, which is not even considered under the intended purpose, intended use, then that clinical benefit we're not going to consider. Because if I remember, there are already some of the drugs which which they're going to utilize for the cancers, for the anti-cancer, those drugs. So what is the impact of that, side effect of that anti-cancer drugs? That it going to produce a hair in much more vigorous way, that they increase the hair productions on a skin. So the people, once they come to know about the side effects, so they're going to utilize that drug for that particular purpose. They're going to manufacture for that particular purpose. But when they manufacture that drug for the cancer treatment, so cancer treatment is their intended purpose, but getting a clinical benefits of hair and everything, so that is the advantage for any bald persons, but that is not intended purpose of that particular drugs, so we cannot consider dosing as a clinical benefit. So that is one of the example. So what is the clinical benefit? Clinical benefit should be to the patient, and it should be the positively to the patient. Apart from that, that clinical benefit should be under the domain of intended purpose of that medical device, not with the other purposes, only for the intended purpose in that domain, in that subject, in that category. If that particular device impacting clinical benefit to the patient, then it considered the clinical benefits. Now another thing we understand, that clinical benefit for this, manufacturer need to go for clinical evaluations of that particular devices, post-market surveillance, post-market clinical follow-ups, and all adverse event database searches. So everything they need to see, and they need to document document it, and they need to produce them to the notified and regulatory bodies, that how their medical device is clinical benefit to them. If the medical device is very critical device, like very high risk devices, class 3 devices according to the EMDRs, then the frequency of this evaluation is a different. Yearly evaluation for the class 3, for the class 2, class 2A, class 2B, there is a different, then class 1 there is a different. It depends upon the manufacturer also, but the regulatory bodies, EMDR, has giving them a strict regulation for the high risk devices, that it has to be done yearly basis, just because of it is a high risk devices. So for that they need to check the clinical benefit of that particular device. In suppose in some of the things, if they are not getting the clinical benefits of that patient, so they need to change their device development, their any device development or any device design modification they need to do, or maybe then function, anything they need to change. So according to that, they match the clinical benefits of this. Now this is the manufacturer side. What is the regulatory body side? The regulatory bodies assessing those clinical evaluations, reports, post-market surveillance report, post-market surveillance data and everything which is produced by the manufacturer. They're going to assess every technical documentations. Regulatory bodies doing such assessments of all technical documentation which is going to provide by the manufacturers, and then they concluded whether every evaluations and every technical documentations are in proper shapes, proper, like they are proper in confirmations, or as they proper regulation as per designed by, as per described by the EMDRs. So if everything comes under the proper regulations, if everything comes under the proper standards, everything going to be applied, clinical evaluation, everything is going to fine, and they benchmarking everything about the clinical and risk ratios and everything, they assess everything. Once they get satisfied that every documents, every data and everything is conform in the conformity, then they're going to say then they're going to issue the various certifications, C certification, other certification, ISO standard certifications and other thing. They are the different regulatory bodies for each in particular certifications. So according to that, they assess every documents, and they issue those things, and they approve any medical device to the market. So if they found there is no clinical benefit, they will not approve, or they going to make a comment also what was the flow, what was the flows, and what was things which can be improved, something like that. They can give the what was the problems in that particular medical device design and whatever it is. So then manufacturer, once they get the report, they need to work according to this, and if there is some problem, if not, then things get approved, and it's going to be sold in the market. So after certifications and all. So this is how the things get calculated. the clinical benefits. So we understand what is the clinical benefit. We understand positive impact in the diagnostic, in preventions, in alleviations, in for any particular diseases, and then it is called the clinical benefits. If everything going to positively impact in general, we can understand. Now manufacturer side, what they need to do for the clinical benefits, they need to perform clinical evaluations, they need to perform post-market surveillance, post-market clinical follow-ups, and everything. They need to keep trace of those medical devices, and every technical document they need to keep on a place, and they need to provide these things to the regulatory bodies. Now regulatory part is that they're going to assess their technical documentation, technical data, clinical data, and everything. Once they assess everything, when they find everything at a good place, like everything in conformations, then definitely they're going to approve that particular medical device from the regulatory sides. And other things we understand, like according to the device types, these evaluations things can be different. The frequency of this evaluation can be different for class 3 yearly, for class 2 and class boost, like some of them for the 2 years or maybe the 3 year. Even the class 2B in some of the cases, if manufacturer want, they can do for the yearly basis also. For the class 1, the 5 year, or maybe if they want to perform for 3 year, or even the manufacturer they want to perform for the yearly basis, they can do. It's up to them. But the EU MDR having some regulation, they have provided what the frequency for the each and every class third. So we'll talk about in some other videos about all these things. So that's it for all about the conformity assessment and conformity assessment, clinical benefits. Now we will talk about some another topic, some another video. So till then, bye, take care.